So once your cabinet boxes look something like this with those face frames attached, you can move on to the next step, which is building the cabinet doors. I chose stub tenon frames, and those are probably the easiest to build of any frame and panel door, and they come together real easily with table saw joinery. Each door part needs a groove. Now typically these would be about 1/4 inch wide, but I make mine a little bit wider at 5/16. And the key point here is to make 2 passes, one from each face of the board, and that way you're ensured a perfectly centered cut. Honestly, that one key point is so important to get your project off to a good start. Definitely start with a good centered groove. And then cut the stub tenon with a dado blade. I usually just install a full 3/4 inch wide dado stack on the table saw and use a sacrificial fence clamped to the rip fence of the table saw. That's kind of a standard setup for cutting tenons of any sort in my shop. And what you'll look for is just a little bit of light splintering as you pass the board over the blade. That'll confirm that the dado blade is set to just the right height. Of course, a sample board will tell you a lot, but once you have a good fit on the joints, you can go ahead and batch out the rest of your parts. Next up is cutting a tongue on the edge of the 1/2 inch plywood panels. Now you could use 1/4 inch plywood panels for your doors, I suppose, but I really like the feeling of a more solid 1/2 inch panel, and the fact that it's plywood really has some advantages. You can actually glue that into the whole length of the groove, and it gives a really strong door with that 1/2 inch center panel. Once you have glue on all the parts, go ahead and knock everything together and take a moment to line your outside edges here. That's kind of your focus as you add the clamps. And then as best you can, try to center the clamps across the panel, and then check the overall panel flatness with a good quality straight edge, and that'll just give you an idea that everything's staying nice and flat as you apply pressure from the clamps. Really important to wind up with flat doors. Next, just center that plywood panel inside the frame in both directions. Pretty easy to do with a putty knife. The last step to check before you go into full production mode is just to make sure that you're not bowing in the middle, which would make you add a 3rd clamp. Looks pretty good here, so we'll go ahead and batch out the rest of these doors. We've got lots of doors to build for the upper and lower cabinets, and you kind of get in a good rhythm when you're gluing up doors like these, especially when the stub tenon joinery came out well and everything fits together as it should. I'm using Euro style hinges. Now these have a built-in soft close feature, and they have a 1/2 inch overlay. These ones cost me a whopping $1 a piece, so if you're interested in using this same hardware, just drop down to the description box. I'll have the link for you there. The soft close on this particular hinge is pretty unobtrusive, and it really does a good job to slow the door down to prevent clanking. Hey, if you're interested in learning more about how to paint your own cabinets with an HVLP sprayer, check out this video we'll link up to. You'll learn all about the primers and urethane paint involved, as well as the spray rig and some good techniques for professional looking results. See you on the next one.